Hello, everyone. Welcome to Outpost Unknown's review of John Wick Chapter 4. This is the third John Wick film in this chapter series that does not have like a subtitle. For some reason, part 3 was like subtitled Parabellum.
Yeah.
This one is just John Wick Chapter 4. And I'm here. I'm Matt. Joining me tonight here in Lincoln is Steve.
Yep. Hello.
And also in Lincoln is Jeff.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's just dive right into it. This is a much anticipated, highly hyped release. I think this is probably like the action film that everyone was looking forward to, coming out this summer. I feel like the John Wick franchise now has kind of maybe usurped Fast and Furious as the big budget action spectacle franchise that people are really anticipating and want to see.
Well,
Um,
anyone who with people with like two brain cells, yes.
yes, yes,
More,
for
more,
sure.
more, more than two, I should say.
For sure.
Vin
now,
Diesel's got the other on lock.
Now, I want to ask you guys before we dive into John Wick Chapter 4, and there will be spoilers, ladies and gentlemen. So
Yeah.
if you haven't seen the film yet and you don't want to know anything about it whatsoever, go watch it first. Then you can come back and listen to this. But there will be spoilers at your warning. Let me get your just a baseline of where you guys are in terms of how you feel about the John Wick franchise as a whole. I'll start with you, Steve. I know you have some issues with it, but generally speaking, how do you feel about the John Wick franchise?
I think John Wick 1 is fantastic. 2's okay, and I've been less and less interested the more that the series drags on.
Okay. And Jeff, where are you at with John Wick?
I'll actually just kind of echo Steve, but without any sort of negative type feelings, because I you can sense from Steve that he's a little bit bummed out on them. But I think he's accurately described what they are. One is the best, and then as they progress, they're less good. I guess they're not as good as the first one, but they just execute at such a high level and are so fun. And they're like the one thing out there that's giving you R-rated action stuff these days, and in a theater certainly. So I agree with Steve that it's downhill from part one, but they're also much fun that I'm just on board.
Okay, my take is like I love this franchise, and I
Hmm.
disagree. I think it's on an upward trajectory from one, and I'll talk about that a little bit more as we dive into our review. So I love these films, and I was really looking forward to John Wick Chapter 4. I didn't know what to expect. I know a couple years back, I think maybe this was pre-pandemic, they were planning to shoot a John Wick 4 and 5 like back to back. So I kind of went into this thinking like, all right, well, I mean, it's going to leave a cliffhanger to get to the inevitable chapter 5, and we'll see how that all played out. But Steve, you're great at plots, and the John Wick
Nope,
franchise,
nope, not this
there's
time.
there's not a whole lot of plot in this series as a whole. If Steve doesn't want to take the responsibility, I will go ahead and take the responsibility.
Yeah,
uh,
I saw this movie several weeks ago, and I have forgotten the bulk of it.
Yeah, basically the end of part 3, Winston shoots John Wick and he falls off the top of the Continental. Everyone thinks he might be dead, but of course he's John Wick. He's not dead. He meets up with the Bowery King, and they sort of at the very end they tease that they're going to take revenge on the High Table and everything that comes with it.
And they absolutely fucking don't.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. So basically, this film is just John Wick deciding he's going to take revenge on. He's just going to kill them all. Basically, kill them all.
No,
Uh,
it's
you know
not. That's no.
that's what he wants to do. I mean, we'll get
No.
there if he
What
actually
what
does it. Go
Well,
ahead.
at the
Go
out
ahead,
that opening
Plotticus.
that opening scene with the horse, right? That's what he's done. He's embarked upon this. He's like, okay, this is what I'm doing now. I'm going and getting
Yeah,
these guys. So
he's
that's what
getting
that opening scene on the horse is, right?
the man above the table or whatever. He kills him, and
That's the
so
thing, that scene at the beginning is, like, what I remember most about this movie, because I remember watching John Wick 3 and thinking, "This whole, like, man above the table thing is fucking stupid. It's ridiculous, and it's fucking stupid." And so I was expecting John Wick 4, like, the man above the table is the man who is ultimately, like, at the tippy top of this assassin underworld. That's got to be like the final boss, right? Like he is the person in charge
no,
of everything. And
no.
John Wick kills him before the opening credits, which to me felt like an acknowledgement of the filmmakers that the whole man above the table thing was fucking stupid, because he's never acknowledged again. Like there's John Wick kills the man above the table in the first 3 minutes of the movie, and then that character may as well have not existed throughout the franchise.
And yet I don't care.
Well, yeah,
So
it's like the script, such as it is, it's full of holes, as if John Wick himself had shot at it with a machine gun. But it's still not enough to kill it. It still lives for me as a fun thing to be doing.
yeah, to me, there's like a million movies. Like I could, I love Endgame and Infinity War and all that stuff. You could poke holes in the logic of all of that night and day. For what I sort of look for in a movie like this is, am I entertained? Is this showing me some really cool stuff? Do I have a smile on my face when I'm watching this movie? And with all the John Wick movies, I absolutely do. And in this case, basically John Wick, he's trying to find another way out. Like he wants to get out. And it turns out Pennywise, he's basically got to do a duel with Pennywise in order to uh, get his freedom, so to speak. And along the way, he runs into some old friends. Winston pops back in. He's sort of been, I guess, beyond excommunicated at this point. What they call him, like deconsecrated or something. But he wants to get the Continental back because it's been blown to smithereens by Pennywise. The High Table has sort of hired Pennywise to I guess, use all the resources in the world to finally try to put an end to John Wick. And the only way John Wick can get out of it is, as Winston tells him, like, look, you got to do a duel with this guy, one on one. And if you beat him, then you can sort of have your freedom and gain your freedom. Uh, but the sort of wrench in this is Donnie Yen shows up as this character named Kane, who's like a blind assassin, basically playing the same character he played in Rogue One. Um, blind ninja sort of assassin that can use the force to block bullets with his ninja sword. And he has had a long relationship with John Wick in the past, and they are friends, but his daughter's in danger. So Donnie Yen decides to come out of retirement, so to speak, and take down John Wick. And that's kind of the plot. It's just John Wick going through as many people as he can to finally get to this final battle with Pennywise. And I'll throw it to you, Jeff. What did you think of John Wick Chapter 4?
I thought it was great. I had a lot of fun watching it. And there was a moment you mentioned Endgame earlier. Now I'm gonna side with Steven that I don't think that you can just universally always say, well, you can, but I don't respect the universal excuse of, well, I'm just here to shut my brain off and have fun. That's why I like Fast and Furious Part 17 or whatever. No, I think we still want to put some standards out there. I still want to say that things are good or bad, and not just eat every poop sandwich that they come out with. But I don't think John Wick is anywhere near being a poop sandwich. John Wick 4 is much closer to a Marvel film than it is to John Wick 1. I will say that. I think that's true. I had
Sure.
this moment during watching the film where it kind of, because I was a little bit more like Steve after John Wick 3, maybe, where I wasn't. Again, I'm just saying I identify with him. I'm not maybe as down on the film as he was, but I was definitely like, yeah, I'm going to go get my bike tire patched. And it turns out the guy at the bike shop is also, in on it. Everybody in the world, uh, I, I had this moment, which is a little silly. Everybody in the world is in the special assassin underworld. Um, but I had this moment watching John Wick 4, and I think it was where they go down into some like magical assassin world subway, and they get on a train and they go from point A to point B, and Larry Fishburne's down there with the new gun and stuff. And I just had this thought like, oh, okay, this is like a complete fantasy land. This is like Alice in Wonderland or something out of a comic book or a dream or something. You never once, I don't think, certainly not in this movie, and I'm not sure about the previous ones, you never see a policeman anywhere.
Right.
The whole world is like, you're not meant to be.
Well, even in part one, the policeman's in on it. He knows John Wick is a super assassin.
Yeah.
Remember? He's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
he's like, "Are you working again, John?"
Oh, right. Yeah. So you're not. So once I had that, it was a definite moment when they were in that train. I'm like, oh, I'm in some other. I'm through the looking glass. I'm in some other world. The rules don't apply. I shouldn't be worrying that much about why none of this makes any sense. I'm just going to go with it. I'm in this dream world where this is what happens. It's like Freddy Krueger's Boiler Room, only it's all guns.
Yeah, okay. Steve, what did you think of John Wick Chapter 4?
I mean, as an action scene delivery service, it is unparalleled. Like the action in this movie is amazing. Uh but I ingest media more for the story and the characters than the spectacle, and this series lost me several movies ago.
Okay. I might shock you. I think this is the best John Wick movie. I think it's having just watched the first, second, and third, basically back to back to back before
Hmm.
going in and watching this. When I rewatched one, I was like, this is really good. Like, I really love part one, but I don't think it holds up as much as people might think it does in their mind. I think people really like the basic idea, right? He's taking revenge because his puppy's killed. But if you look at like the villains in part one, they're not that interesting. They're not that memorable. The action sequences are not nearly as mind blowing and like wow sort of shit that you get in the sequels. It's much tighter, sort of more intimate story, and I think we were like, holy crap, this is really cool at the time, but now they're showing shit that's like you said, it's almost like a comic book now. It's a comic book level sort of artistry going on here. It reminds me a lot of like when you watch the scene in Kill Bill when Uma Thurman's taking out all of the ninjas, right,
Yeah.
all by herself. It's just, films are a visual spectacle in many ways. And it's not, you don't have to have a film that's just about, it's got to have this amazing story and everything's got to make sense from point A to point B to point C. Or now we're going too far outside of realism here. I don't think any of these movies are grounded in realism whatsoever. Even the first one, it's like this is patently absurd what we're talking about and what we're showing here. But with this one, I was like, the villains are better. The dude who I always forget his name is the same guy that plays Pennywise in the It movies. He's a
Bill
way cool.
Skarsgård.
Bill Skarsgård. Yeah, he is a much. He's probably the most memorable villain of all of these movies, in my opinion. I thought his performance was fantastic. Donnie Yen is just incredible. Like the stunts that
Mhm.
he does and like, the martial arts and everything that he can do, it adds so much more to it. So if you're talking even the side like Mr. Nobody, the guy with the dog and stuff, like all of the side characters around John Wick in this movie are infinitely more interesting to me than all the other movies. The action sequences in this I thought were incredible. Like that top down camera view as they're going through the house and he's just shooting. Like, I mean, it's like a level of artistry on display here that I was quite wowed by, and I love the ending. I was not expecting the ending to be what it was, and
Mhm.
obviously they're probably going to make a John Wick Chapter 5 at some point, but I hope they don't, because I think it's a perfect sort of ending to the story of John Wick. I'm fine if they want to like branch out to like Ballerina, the TV show, and the Continental, and do other assassins. That's cool, but I feel like the John Wick story ended sort of perfectly here. So I thought this just ramped up everything that I loved about the first John Wick movies to like an extra degree here. So I think this is actually the best, in my opinion.
I
I
think
agree with you 100% on the ending. I hope that they sort of leave the John Wick story where it ended here, and you can think of it as ambiguous if you want. I think they leave that open to you if you
They
want to
do a
play with that.
little bit
If
because
you
because
if you want
Lawrence Fishburne kind of looks at Winston, he starts to laugh. He's like, "Where do you think he is, heaven or hell?" And then Winston's like, "I don't know." And then he gives that laugh. And you're like, "Okay, John Wick's not
Yeah,
quite dead."
so I think it would be great if they left John Wick wherever he is now, and then if they want to continue to play in this universe, they can have these other characters. The daughter of the Japan Continental, like she can take out her quest for vengeance on the high table or something like that. So I think you can still play around in this universe with other characters if you want. But I think it would be pretty cool and pretty uh, show some reserve and leave John Wick end his story here. I think that would be good. Um, I- to push back just a little bit, and again, maybe the answer is they did it so well that I just don't care, and I accept that. But isn't it at some point they just keep tacking on new things? about what the high table is or does or new rules or like, well, actually, you can do this. Like they're the most vicious, disgusting organization of villains in the world, but oh, they'll agree that they'll stop if you take out this guy. And so they just add on all these things. You never really see the high table do anything other than try to kill John Wick. Like, uh, I don't think they're cool. They pull it off. It's a lot of style, and it seems like it's all about an inch deep.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
But
I am I am
I don't think these
not
movies need to
a
be deeper than an
Yeah.
inch. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
go
yeah,
ahead, Steve.
I am not a style over substance person. Like I need the substance, and so like that's why like I am as cool as the action scenes are. Like I accept that I am not the target audience for something like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I think that's totally fair. I think someone can look at these and be like, "There's nothing to this at all. I want a little bit more." And I guess my pushback would be like, "Yeah, then I think they're just not for you because I don't know what depth you could put to something like this."
That's fine.
Like,
So
I mean,
I
I love movies like Commando or whatever. Like, go back in time to that, and I love that stuff a lot. I pose the question, and I don't know if I have a good answer for it myself. Like, what is like a thinking man's action movie? Like, are there any? What can we come up with? You don't say something like Heat. I don't
Con
think.
Air.
Yeah, no, you don't say like. I don't know, like
Yeah,
you
thinking
know.
man's action. I don't know. Maybe like I haven't seen most of them, but maybe like a Mission Impossible movie. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
You've seen those. I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
I think it's
John
just like
Wick's way
for me,
better than
it's like
Mission Impossible.
the 100%. I think it's just like the tone. I feel like there's a massive tone difference between John Wick 1 and John Wick 2. And if that tone from John Wick 2, where it is basically like implicitly like fantasy land now, I think I'd be more into it. But I don't know.
Hmm.
I
I
don't
didn't
know.
like the jump from 1 and 2, but I will agree that like I hope this is the end of John Wick and the John Wick series, because this is another franchise that reminded me of a conversation that I had with Matt many years ago talking about Spartacus, one of our favorite shows. And we both agreed like we wanted more Spartacus. We got 3.5 seasons. We wanted more, but then Matt pointed out, what else can they do? Like
Yeah.
every subsequent season of Spartacus would just be a new Roman general shows up and Spartacus has to beat him. And I feel like that's where John Wick is now. Like John Wick 5 would
Yeah,
just be
I agree.
I agree with that.
another new branch of the table that we've never heard of before
The
that
only thing
shows
I
up.
could
And
think
now
of,
this is the
Steve,
ultimate threat to John
if
Wick.
they well, if like they pull him out of retirement again somehow to literally kill the entire high table, like there is
That would be the
like
only
John
Like
thing
Wick
he
that
has
was
would
to
be
supposed to do in
dismantle
this?
everything. Well, I think he was supposed to, but then Winston points out, he's like, "Where does it end? They're just going to keep
So
bringing people, and you're going to eventually
speaking of
die."
that, I have a question for you two. What did John Wick actually accomplish in this series? Because at the beginning of John Wick 1, the table is in charge of this massive assassin underworld. And at the end of John Wick 4, the table is in charge of this massive assassin underworld. And they keep talking about over and over and over again, like anyone that John Wick replaces or anyone that John Wick kills will be replaced. Even the man above the table, the one that John Wick kills immediately, like was implicitly like a new version of the man above the table. They don't tell you what happened to the guy from part 3, but they
Well, that doesn't
recognize
matter.
that this
Like,
is a different one.
what he accomplished was,
Dying?
going out on his own terms. And sometimes that, I mean, we've seen like the Wild Bunch. Like, what did those guys accomplish? It's yeah, he doesn't have to win necessarily in the end. He
Yeah,
just has to,
first one,
But
right?
all he
be
It was
true to
achieved
himself
was
through the end.
dying.
no, that's not all
He
he
died
achieved.
for his friend. He sacrificed himself for his friend Kane. I mean, what? Yeah,
Like he in the first one, right? It was about avenging, basically the disrespect, what happened to his wife, and killing the dog.
yeah,
He accomplished that at
yep,
the end of the first one. Every movie after that, he's trying to get out again. His whole goal is like, I want to escape, and they're like, you can't escape. We gave you an out once before. That's why you were retired at the beginning of part one, but you came back, buddy, and now you're
yeah,
fucked, and you're gonna have to deal
yep,
with this the rest of your life. And so this culminates in part four. He's trying to find a way out, and he's like, "You, this one-on-one duel will be your way out, and he gets his way out. So that's ultimately what he accomplished.
Nah,
And
I feel
we
I
don't know
feel
what
like
kind. We
no
don't
sense
know.
of accomplishment from these movies.
We can only speculate to what level of evil deeds John Wick may have done in his first run as being the whatever, the Baba Yaga or whatever.
Oh yeah, well they
Um,
hint to that in part 2 or 3 where he's talking about, he's like, yeah, I did some
so I
really
mean,
bad
the
shit.
truth is, he just maybe never never deserved to get out of it.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, they're gonna do a John Wick Chapter 5. You know they will. And
I
And
don't
it
know.
will
I
be
don't want it. I don't want it.
bubblegum under the table will come out and attack John Wick. And oh, the bubblegum under the table is to be feared. No one's ever defeated the bubblegum under the table.
I have no problems with the churro vendor on the street turning out to be a super assassin. Don't care. It doesn't bother me whatsoever. I'm just
So
like,
fucking
sweet.
stupid.
They're
So
throwing
fucking
churros at
stupid.
each other and stabbing them in the eye. That's I don't care, because again, I come to these movies. I'm just like, I want to have a good time. I want that adrenaline rush. There were so many sequences in all of John Wick movies, honestly, but this one in particular, which is like, wow, that was fucking awesome what they did there. Like like the top down sort of fight. I thought was super super cool. I liked all the fight in the road. It's ridiculous, right?
Yeah,
Like just there's not a cop in sight. There's not a single cop. All these people are just firing machine guns in downtown Paris, whatever. Not a single cop shows up. But again, I don't care. Like,
yeah,
I don't want the cops to show up. That's not why I'm watching this movie. I just want to see these cool action sequences and appreciate the artistry of this, because I do think that this rises to a different level than something like Commando or something like just
I
the
loved
stunt work and
I
everything.
loved like the Warriors references and stuff. I mean, that stuff
Yeah,
was like super neat, stylish, and cool. Yeah.
yeah. So so wrapping up, letter
Mhm.
grade, Jeff, on a letter grade, what would you give John Wick Chapter 4?
A, but not A plus. A.
Steve.
I mean, C. No, again, movie's not for me. C.
That's fair. Fair. I'm going to give it an A plus because I think
All
it's
right.
the best one so far. And again, I have sort of hindsight of watching all three of the first ones back to back to back.
Mhm.
And I definitely think this is, and maybe it's just because it's recency bias because I just got out of it. But to me, this is the one that I was like, wow, this one's really going to stick in my mind. Love the villains, love everything about it. A plus for me. So leave a comment, ladies and gentlemen. What did you think of John Wick Chapter 4? Tell Steve he's wrong. It's okay
Yeah.
to tell Steve
Yeah.
that he's wrong about something. I tell him that all the time. So thank you, everybody, for listening
Yeah.
to our review. And, we'll see you some other time.